Hello and welcome to another Tech Tuesday here on AIC Productions Video. We are looking again at my Ideapad 1, called the 1 series. It's the upgraded version of my 130S. So the big difference between these two, besides the fancy color of the new one, is the Intel Celeron. This is an N4000 processor, and this one they've upgraded to the N4020, so 4020, and that gives you a whole 200 megahertz boost in performance. So what does that mean for you? Well, first let's look at the machine itself. What have they changed between the two? And then we'll look a little bit at the performance of the two machines. So first and foremost, it'll be kind of hard to see in the camera, I apologize, but the thing that you'll notice is that dimensionally they are almost identical for width and height, but for depth the new one is ever so slightly thicker. A lot of that comes from the slightly taller feet pulling the laptop a little bit further off of the hard surface you set it on, leaving a little bit bigger air gap underneath the laptop. The other thing that you'll notice is the old one has more downward firing speakers, and the new one has slightly more sideways firing speaker, but when we opened it up and looked, the speakers were actually more or less in the same place. It's just they moved the grill a little bit because, again, it's a little bit thicker and angled here, and so they were able to move the grill. As far as sound quality, the sound is significantly better on the new one. It has lower lows and higher highs and much clearer sound. It can get to a much higher volume as well, and so this is a slightly better sounding laptop. Is it great? Absolutely not. There are definitely laptops out there with much better sound quality to them, but for a budget sub $200 laptop, this one definitely is a better sounding laptop than this one. As far as other things about it, first, I don't know if the camera can pick it up here, but the old one is not a fingerprint magnet. I touch it all the time. I have greasy hands. I touch my hair. I touch this. I have 4 kids. They touch it. I use this a lot to play them movies on like car trips and things like that. So they touch it, and it doesn't get fingerprints. This one, however, I've had less than a week, and it is absolutely smeared in my fingerprints, and I haven't even let my kids have it yet. And so while I love this color, I don't know if I'd pick it again for the fingerprint magnet of it, or I would just have to have a cloth with me to be able to clean those fingerprints off. Opening it up, you'll notice that the keyboard has very much the same layout between the two. In fact, they do feel very similar. The trackpad is also the same. It's the same size. It has the same drivers. It's the same trackpad. And so you have the same interface between the two, but again, kind of hard to see in the camera, and it really isn't much of a difference. But the keys on the new one sit a little bit closer to the bed of the keyboard, but they have the same travel as the old ones, which means when you push on these, you go to the same level or slightly below that plane, and so you can actually feel the edges around the keys. It's not a feeling I really like, whereas on the old one I have a little bit better tactile feedback from the keys because I'm not getting that. It doesn't go to the level or below the level of the keyboard, and so when you push a key, you're pushing just that key and not any of the space around it by accident. Something that I'm sure I'll get used to typing on this fairly quickly, but it is something I noticed when using it. The screen on this laptop, they're identical. They both are running 1366 by 768. They're pretty good screens. Again, this is a sub $200 laptop, depending. Right now prices are kind of crazy because of Corona, but I paid $150 for this laptop new from Best Buy. This one I did buy directly from Lenovo. I did buy these laptops. They weren't given to me or lent to me. These are mine. And I did spend right at about $210 shipped to my house. So a little bit more money for the new one. But again, I did buy it directly from Lenovo. I wanted to get this out to you guys before it hit store shelves. And so once it hits more retailers, that price should come down. Again, because of Corona, I have no idea. This laptop right now is selling for over $200. So, and I only paid $150. So you'll have to watch those prices a little bit. But these should be sub $200 laptops. And the screen, again, it's okay. It's a good screen. Not the best viewing angles, but they're not terrible either. It's what you would expect. It's better than what you would expect from the cost of the machine. It really is. The resolution is okay. Again, it is such a small screen, and so you don't feel like you're having to see every individual pixel as if you were looking at it on like a 15-inch screen. I have had 15.6-inch screens with the same resolution, and it is very noticeable on those. I would like to see these hopefully in the next iteration. I would love if these were to get a 16 by 10 instead of a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, a little bit taller, a little bit more pixels vertically on there, so that you can have a little bit more working space with it and give you a little bit more room for the keyboard and the touchpad. I'd love if this touchpad was another quarter-inch, half-inch larger. I really would. It's not bad. Again, it is a very compact machine, and you can see it takes up all the room that there is, but a little bit taller screen ratio would either give you less bezel here, or it would give you a little bit bigger space for that touchpad. Now, one thing that I'm not so happy about on this laptop is let's look at our connectivity. So here on the right hand side on the new one, we have just the headphone microphone port. On the old one, we have a full-size USB type A. We also have our headphone microphone as well as our micro SD card reader. If we flip around to the other side, on the new one, we have two USB type A ports, a HDMI, and our micro SD card reader. On the old one, we had our USB type A, our HDMI, a USB type C port on this side as well, and then you have your charging ports. So you lose out an entire USB port on the new machine, and it being a USB type C port as well. Not quite sure what the I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is behind that choice. I would think if you're going to lose a USB port, you lose a full size one and stick with that USB type C. Being that these are budget systems, it wasn't a Thunderbolt anyways. It was, I believe that chipset costs as much as this whole computer costs, or at least, you know, a big chunk of it. So they wouldn't put that into these machines. And so it was just a USB 3.1 Gen 1 port on there. And so it wasn't anything special. But with so many things moving to USB type C, you would think that they would stick with that format on this machine. And maybe it just wasn't used, and so they decided to leave it off. I would also like to see in the future, being that this side is so empty, a full-size Ethernet port on there. It's not too thin for one. They have the little flaps that flap down, and you can easily have one on here. As for the thickness, I'd be willing to spend an extra couple bucks for that on this machine. I think that would be a great feature to give this machine. Now, as far as performance, let's go ahead and open these up. I did run benchmarks on these, and the results are a little bit interesting. So on Passmark, when I ran this benchmark, the new one gets a little bit better score. The CPU and the memory and storage are all slightly faster, about a 10% increase in performance on all of those. And that is a noticeable increase. The score on the old one is interesting because the 3D graphics score is significantly better than the new one. I'm not quite sure why. I think one of the tests on the old one, for whatever reason, is not running correctly, and so it's getting significantly higher frame rates on one of the tests, which is throwing it a bit out of whack. So we're going to throw that out. Real world testing, this one is between 5 and 10% overall faster in any particular task than this one is. The one thing that really surprised me, though, is when I went and ran Cinebench. So the scores on these are pretty low. This one is at 293 and this one is at 320. Again, not great scores, but these are not meant to be hard running machines. The reason why I did that is it's a long running test that really taxes the CPU. And what I was really looking at is the rate at which the CPU continues to run. And so on the old one, it started out at 2.6 gigahertz and slowly worked its way down. And towards the end, it was sitting at about 1.85, 1.9 gigahertz. So it really lost quite a bit of speed due to the heat. It had to throttle down so it didn't overheat itself and damage your chipset. However, with the new one, it ran at 2.7 gigahertz the entire time, and it was significantly faster to finish that benchmark. Faster compared to this one. Just about anything else would crush this. And I think that's the biggest difference between the two. I don't know if it's because there's just a little bit extra gap between there, that extra piece of copper on the base plate, or true improvements to that CPU die. But this one was able to sustain its CPU performance the entire benchmark. It did not drop below 2.7 gigahertz. It actually did get up to 2.8 gigahertz a couple of times, stuck around 2.75, but never went below 2.7 gigahertz the entire run, where this one lost almost a full gigahertz of speed during its test. And so I think that's really the main difference between these two machines, is this one will just always feel slightly snappier, slightly faster than the old one. Now, in real world, would you be able to tell the difference between the two? I don't really think so. If you own the older one, if you own a 130S, I would not go out and buy the one unless you had to. You know, if this one's on its last legs and you really need to upgrade, then yes, I would definitely upgrade to the new one. If you're running an older machine, maybe you have one that only has 2 gigahertz, or excuse me, if it only has 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of storage, this is definitely an upgrade. I've mentioned this in videos and when I've talked to people online in the past. These machines are not meant to be your main machine. They just aren't. This is not what you buy to play your AAA title games. It's not what you buy to do massive research projects where you have 100 Internet Explorer or Chrome or Firefox, whatever tabs open at the same time. These are what I like to consider one-trick ponies. They do one thing at a time adequately, not well, adequately. Really, for me, what the purpose of these are is to have a super thin and light machine. It weighs nothing. It really can be slotted in with another computer. I work in IT, and so I almost always have my work computer with me, because if stuff breaks, I have to be able to hop on and fix it. But I can't use that computer for personal use. At least I won't use that computer for personal use. So if I'm on a family road trip, or if I'm out somewhere and I know I might need to use a computer, this can slide into my backpack right next to my work computer and not even be noticed. And on my old one, I was getting easily 8 hours of battery life plus out of it. I've gotten over 10 hours of battery life on this one so far. I'll have to do some more testing on that. But really, that's what these are for. They're really a second computer or a third computer, used for basic tasks, used for web browsing, streaming video, really that perfect laptop to sit next to your bed at night. So if you're going to bed and you tend to watch movies or whatever, I don't have a TV in my bedroom, but you want to watch something like this is perfect. It's not air cooled, so you don't have to worry about cooking it sitting on your lap. It never gets overly hot or warm. It's great for kids my kids are going to school, so they have their online classes, so they're typing up book reports. They don't type super fast, so they never type faster than the computer can handle. They're usually just looking at one thing at a time. That's what these are for, and they do that job very, very well. And if that's what you need a computer for, I can't recommend these enough. If you already have an older version, though, I might skip this one. But if you don't, or if you need to replace it because you've worn it out or broken it or whatever, I definitely think it's worth buying, but I would keep an eye on the prices. My 130S, I paid about $150 for it before taxes, shipping, anything like that. And that seems to be about what they're worth, between that $150 to $200 range. Unfortunately, right now, Corona prices are causing everything to be a bit crazy. I did buy this directly from Lenovo, the new one, and I did pay just over $200 for it. Prices have been kind of all over the place, between $210 to $230, $240, somewhere in there. But if you talk to in chat, you can usually get a little bit of a better deal on it. And also just keep an eye on the price, and also check for when it comes out. I'll put a link for a search on Amazon, see if you can find it there. Again, at the recording of this video, they're not on Amazon yet, but they should be soon. And then again, directly on Lenovo's website. But yeah, definitely something that if you're looking for something in this category, you don't already own something in this category, definitely worth picking up. But if you already do, that new processor just isn't quite fast enough of an upgrade. But I do like it, and I will definitely be using it as an additional computer. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.